Mary Amendolia Gardner here with Vita Poetica Journal. Today we are interviewing visual artist Mary Jennings. Mary is local to the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, and we are delighted to have her with us today. Welcome, Mary Jennings.
Thank you, Mary. So great to be here and happy to share whatever you need.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a visual artist, but how would you describe what you do?
Well, I mean, for filling out a form purpose, I would say I'm a visual artist, I'm an artist and an instructor. But I will have to add that it's funny. Sometimes it's best to hear what people have to say about you when you've left the room. And I would have to say that it's pretty telling what people have to say. And that is your brand when you've left the room. So you could say one thing all you want, but it's really what other people say when you're not around. But I'm an artist through and through.
And Mary, tell us a little bit about your art training. What's your art background?
Well, I started overcoming at a very young age, and I would describe my art as that. And when I was young, my father, who raised me, he signed me up for every single class at a local community center, Chevy Chase Community Center in Northwest Washington. And every day after school, I would go there and I learned everything from tap dance, cooking, beauty, art making, tie-dye, ceramics, lots of ceramics. Then I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts, which is in Northwest Washington. And it was a fantastic experience. And I thought I knew everything until I went to college and had a humbling 4 years of education there, graduated from Moore College of Art in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania with the textile design degree.
Wonderful. What was the best advice you received as a young artist?
Well, the best advice I received was from a local mother, sort of the neighborhood mom. We would all land at her house, and she made this great statement in front of all of my peers that I had potential. And I thought, oh, okay, that sounds wonderful. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know what the word meant at the time that it was sort of spoken to me. But it has been it's rather than advice, it's been, words of open affirmation that I've lived into through so many difficult times and lots of overcoming. And the reason why I describe art making is overcoming, because honestly, I firmly believe that art making is somewhere in this great intersection between limitation and grace. And so when you are fully into your art making, you are indeed overcoming something. So I really do lean into that. And then as far as advice goes, another piece of advice I have actually given to myself as an older, more established artist which is almost a worse place to be rather than a young artist, is that I am enough. And I mean that in the biggest, most dramatic way, because honestly, we sort of beat ourselves up constantly through the process of art making, that we need to remind ourselves that we are indeed enough, so that we can actually be fully more able and freer to go do bigger things with our art and make a bigger impression. So being freed up to create more by telling myself and by believing that I am indeed enough has just blown my creative doors wide open.
Well, let's see some of your creations, Mary. Why don't you do a share screen with us and show us some of what you've worked on recently?
Well, certainly I will share my screen, but there's one sort of thing I want to make you aware of when viewing my art is when I'm creating and when I'm instructing, I use art and art making as more of a tool to arrive at a destination. And I actually, in my creations lately, I'm more concerned with and this is also having a social mindset, a social justice mindset. I'm more interested in my artwork being viewed and discovered for its character rather than actually its appearance. So when I'm making artwork, I'm actually working through something that isn't technique related, and it doesn't even have a destination. It's more something that I am working through so that I can share part of what the process of the revealing side of the creative process came to be. Wow, that's a lot of nothings that I just said, but
Well, it's about communication, right, Mary? I mean, that's ultimately what you're doing, is you're a communicator.
it is. And as a matter of fact, I did stand-up comedy for a few years. I've always been rather funny. I know you can tell that by this interview, but I did stand-up comedy because, again, it was another form of communication, and I considered it another form of art making, and where you communicate life in a way that people can identify with, and do it on a stage. And that was super fun. Anyway, this is a series of work that I am currently sort of dabbling in right now, and it's I'm working through the 4 stages of empathetic listening, and just empathetic listening in general. I think empathy is something that is sort of vague. It's hard to understand for several people. This is uh, this is from left to right, the 4 stages. The first 2 are more about sort of taking in information when you are in the process of understanding before being understood. That's what empathy is. And empathetic listening. There are 4 stages, which 2 of them involve more the intake, and then the other 2 involve more of the processing of the information, and the resharing, or the interaction between what's been heard and what's been listened to. This is another work of art, this is actually close up of the empathetic listening series. Did you want to see more, Mary?
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit more about the empathetic listening series. How did you change in the process of making that?
I would say that the because it was almost like I was interacting with the art with the intention of being a better empathetic listener, but I honestly needed to practice that with myself as well. And when I created this series, it was 2019. I had it on, the last time it was shown in public was 2020, January of 2020. It was part of a small art show. 2020 presented its own opportunity for empathetic listening with not just me, but the world around me. And we were all going through something that was so different. And so I just felt like this was God's provision in sort of setting myself inclined towards this not just this process of the way I work, but the actual topic that I was working with. And I have been devoting new works towards this same process, but looking at it. This is abstract, which is almost one of the easier forms to convey empathetic listening. But I've actually been working more towards conveying the same topic, but in nature and in humankind, and those things, being more literal with it.
These are
So
wonderful pieces of art, Mary. Thank you for sharing those with us. Just sort of as we wind up in a minute here, I would love to see. Oh no, go back to your art. I always like to ask an artist what's their favorite piece of art that they've created. Tell us about a piece of art that you've made that you just treasure, and why.
well, thank you for asking. It's really hard, first of all, to say a favorite anything. One of the worst questions actually is, what's your favorite color to an artist? And favorite art is almost as hard to answer. It's like asking a mother, which is your favorite child? It's it's very difficult, but there is a piece that I really do treasure, mainly because of the process that was involved in making it, but also I keep it in my house. I don't think I'll ever sell it. It's a piece that sort of feeds me, and it started with a photograph. So this is a photograph that I saw on social media in about 2007, and it was so captivating. It was just three gorgeous women sitting in the middle of a stream, and they were clearly family members. And when I asked permission, I wanted to paint this. I was so captivated by this image. I wanted to paint this, so I asked the owner of the image, which is this young girl who is now my age. I messaged her online and I said, "May I have permission to paint this?" She said, "Well, of course, sure." And so I actually took it out to a park, a local park in Virginia. I painted it outside. I enjoyed making this is the result of the work. And for me, this isn't a piece that is it's oil on canvas. It's not a painting that is necessarily this masterpiece of technical genius, but to me, I adore looking at this piece because it reminds me of my grandmother and my mother and me, and how these women have poured into me. My mother passed when I was 12. I was a caregiver of my grandmother through her 90s, and they're both gone now, and I really find this very comforting to look at, and to gain strength from these three generations together. And they sort of through this image give me sustainability. Another piece that I do really enjoy looking at, and it is a piece, it's acrylic on paper, and it's an abstract, but the reason why it has such energy to it, and it is I sort of laugh at how it was made. It's a still life of Oreos, stacked Oreo cookies.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but I like the energy, and it's very fresh and sweet.
Mary, thank you so much for sharing your art with us today. If you could take us back to the full screen.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your art, a little bit of your life journey as an artist, and some of your story. It's really wonderful to see what you're doing. And I hope that you continue to keep painting, keep teaching, keep expressing. And we will offer our viewers the opportunity to connect with you if they want to do that, to see more of your art. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. It's been a pleasure.